Desperate girl pleads with Paralyzed Tycoon for scraps. His shocking response will haunt you. In the heart of a city that thrived on dreams yet crushed spirits beneath its relentless pace, a moment unfolded that would echo across every dark alley and luxurious penthouse. A girl, ragged, with wild eyes reflecting desperation, collapsed before the imposing figure of a tycoon known for his iron resolve and heart locked away tighter than the vaults of his wealth. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a clash between two worlds, the eerie silence of the night amplifying every heartbeat and hushed breath. As the moon cast an unholy glow on the scene, it seemed the very sky held its breath. The girl's voice quivered. "Please, just a scrap. I've nothing left." Her fingers, dirt-streaked and trembling, reached out, brushing against the edge of his wheelchair, a hallowed ground that felt more like a distant planet. The tycoon, paralyzed from a recent accident, wore an expression so unreadable it could chill bones. But his eyes were alive, flickering with something deep and haunting. Maybe it was indignation, maybe it was pity. Either way, it sparked an unsettling energy that made the air thick, wrapping around the observing crowd like a noose. Gasps filled the air from the onlookers, a mix of shock and amusement. Some whispered, "What is she thinking?" Others shrugged as if this was just another sideshow. The noise barely masked the tension, a palpable suspense that seemed to sway like the trees in the wind. Could this girl break through the armor of his wealth? Did desperation make her magically compelling or disturbingly grotesque? As her words spilled into the damp night, they twisted and turned like smoke from a dying fire, full of subtle hints of madness. "I know you have it in you to help." The plea was a dagger, sharp and desperate, but what followed was something none could anticipate. The tycoon, with a flick of his wrist, summoned his assistant. The click of his hand against metal echoed, and everyone leaned in, eyes wide with a sick kind of curiosity. The assistant, slick and too polished, approached, and the murmurs grew into restless whispers. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Everyone was captivated but terrified of what was coming. And then it hit his chilling words, a response no one saw coming. They slipped from his lips like fog creeping over the city, palpable yet fleeting. "Why should I?" A simple question that shattered the thick air, leaving incredulous stares in its wake. Was he daring her? Testing the limits of humanity over his gilded throne? That moment froze time, and the world around them faded away, leaving just the girl entrenched in despair and the massive presence of the tycoon looming like a titan. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, the moon hid behind a cloud, darkening the scene further. An ominous twist hung in the air, and the girl's resolve began to crack. Could she really pry open his heart? Or was she just a moth to his flame, stumbling closer to a perilous end? The crowd's breath caught in unison, waiting, desperate to know the resolution of this gripping standoff. What would happen next? The girl took a shaky breath, her heart racing like a trapped bird. "You're just like everyone else," she blurted out, the words laced with anger and hurt. Each syllable buzzed in the air, heavy with accusations that echoed off the walls of the city. A flicker of surprise danced across the tycoon's face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Why should I?" he repeated, but this time, there was a slight edge to his voice. The taunting challenge hung like smoke, and the girl felt the weight of those two words pressing against her chest. She hadn't meant to provoke him, yet as the tension soared, she realized that perhaps she couldn't afford to care anymore. Around them, the crowd shifted uncomfortably, a mixture of excitement and anticipation swirling. Someone whispered, "This is entertainment." But for the girl, this was life and death, a fight against despair that clawed at her from every direction. "Because," she stammered, grasping for clarity amid the storm of her emotions. It's not just about money. It's about being human. Her hands clenched into fists, nails digging into her flesh for grounding. We're all struggling in different ways. You may have riches, but look at you. You're trapped. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Was she crossing a line? The night was thick with nerves and crackling energy. His brows furrowed, a flicker of something genuine mixing with contempt. The assistant, his eyes darting nervously, stepped forward as if to intervene. But the tycoon raised a hand, silencing him. "Keep talking," he said, an unsettling smile creeping across his lips. It was a glimmer of something more interest, perhaps. The atmosphere shifted, morphing from mere curiosity into something more volatile. With her heart hammering, the girl pressed on. "You could change a life with just a shred of kindness. Just one small act," she urged, her voice trembling but persistent. "Isn't that worth more than all your money?" Fear gripped her throat as his features softened for just a moment. But then the darkness returned, a shadow creeping back over his face. "And what would you offer in return?" The words felt like a slap. The crowd's buzz turned into gasps again, as if they were witnessing a perverse bargaining. "What do you mean?" She blinked, feeling the ground shift beneath her. "Do you think that kindness comes without strings attached? What would it cost you to receive my help?" His gaze bore into her, a predatory gleam lurking just beneath the surface. Dread pooled in her stomach. Was this a game for him? Was he so far removed from reality that he truly saw humanity as a negotiation? What do you want?" She stuttered, the bravado wailing away. A moment of silence hung like a weight. Then he leaned in, the wheels of his chair creaking as he drew closer. "I want to see you beg. I want to know how far you're willing to go. How much you value your life over whatever torments brought you here." At that, a wave of horror washed over her. The crowd leaned forward, breath bated. She could feel her thin veneer of hope cracking under the pressure. Isn't that what life really is? A series of desperate negotiations? His voice dripped with mockery, and the darkness around them felt palpable, pulsing with sinister energy, and in that moment of vulnerability, something snapped. She realized she had a choice to embrace fear or fight back with the last remnants of her dignity. As she gathered her thoughts, eyes locked on his, she felt a fire ignite within her. "Fine," she spat defiantly. "If begging is what you want, I will show you just how far I can go. But don't think you own me." A ripple of astonished gasps rolled through the gathering, a mix of horror and admiration. The tycoon chuckled darkly, "This just got interesting." In that instant, everything felt precarious. The stakes had shifted dramatically, and an invisible line had been drawn. What had she just unleashed? As the shadows deepened around them, she braced for the coming struggle, not just against a ruthless man but against the darkness within herself. What price would she pay, and would she ever be able to reclaim her sense of self? The air crackled with anticipation as the girl faced the tycoon, her spirit rising in defiance. She could feel a strength she didn't know she possessed growing within her, clashing with the tempest of fear that threatened to engulf her. As she stood before him, surrounded by the murmurs of the crowd, she knew that this moment was pivotal, a risky dance between desperation and courage. His eyes glinted with amusement, a predator savoring the thrill of his prey's fear. "Then what will your first act of begging be, little bird?" He taunted, leaning back, arms crossed, the chair creaking beneath his weight. "What are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of your pride? Your precious humanity?" The crowd shifted again, their eyes glued to her every move, breathing in the charged energy of the unfolding drama. It was sickening, this circus-like atmosphere where people feasted on the pain and humiliation of others. But she tightened her fists, a determination coursing through her. This was her story, not theirs. "I'll show you," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "You think you can break me? You have no idea what I've been through. I know pain." "Pain, you say?" The tycoon leaned forward, intrigue sparking in his dark eyes. Let us see how deep that pain can go. What happens when the stakes rise? They locked eyes, and in that moment, she felt the weight of generations pushing down on her shoulders. All the stories of struggle, the whispers of resilience ignited her fire. All right then, she breathed, the decision solidifying in her heart. If begging is what it takes, then so be it. But understand this, I won't ever truly be on my knees for you. I'll vent my truth. I'll scream until you can't ignore me. The tycoon raised an eyebrow, an unsettling smile twitching at the corners of his lips. Go ahead. Let us see how loud your scream can get. She stepped forward, ignoring the shivers cascading down her spine, letting her voice swell until she was nearly shouting. Please. Show me your kindness, give me hope. Or let me be free. I will not grovel at your feet. My dignity is not for sale. Gasps rippled through the crowd. For a moment, silence descended, thick and palpable, only broken by the distant hum of city life pushing against the surreal bubble they were creating. Her heart raced as the tycoon remained still, assessing her with a look that felt like blades cutting through her bravado. Interesting strategy, one that'll get you nowhere, he countered smoothly. That's not how it works here. People bend. But do they break? Unease twisted her insides. He was reveling in this, and she was standing on the edge of a precipice. What would you do? She shot back, a fierce resolve shining in her eyes. If you were in my shoes, if you were suffocated under a pile of despair, would you have the guts to rise? Or have you lost your humanity completely? This time, his smirk faded, replaced by a momentary flicker of uncertainty. She hit a nerve, the crowd stirred restlessly, anticipation morphing into a sort of raw tension, the same tension one feels before a storm. Would she shatter beneath his glance, or would he falter at her boldness? Time hung still, heavy and thick, as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. An unspoken challenge charged the air. Finally, he leaned back, folding his hands. You're either the bravest girl I've ever met, or truly foolish. A cold gaze swept over the crowd. Let us see how far you're willing to take this. But know this, in this game, there are no rules, none except my own. An ominous thrill danced down her spine, she could feel the stakes soaring dangerously high. What dark deals awaited her in this twisted game? With the weight of her decision hanging over her like a storm cloud, she stood unwavering. Bring it on, she whispered, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. As tension crackled, they stood locked in their intense duel, two souls entwined in an unholy alliance. What would be the outcome of this perilous game? And deep within her heart, would she truly be able to withstand the consequences, or was she already losing herself in the shadows? The silence shattered like glass, the tycoon's voice slicing through the tension like a knife. Then let us make this interesting, shall we? His grin widened. How about a wager? A taste of unconditional desperation for both you and me. The air thickened with uncertainty. What do you mean? She asked, heart hammering in her chest. Her instinct screamed to retreat, yet something within her ignited a flicker of dangerous curiosity. Let us elevate the stakes, he said smoothly, his gaze glimmering with malice. If you truly believe in your resolve, why not gamble your truth against something tangible? If you can impress me, I'll grant you what you want, hope, escape, whatever you desire. But if not, he let the unspoken threat linger. She could hear the crowd hold its collective breath, a wave of anticipation rippling through the air. This was no longer just a test of endurance, it was a dark dance of power and control. Her mind raced, weighing the risks. Did she truly have any choice? You want a show? She challenged, feeling adrenaline surge. Then I'll show you what I'm made of. But know this, I'm not a pawn in your game. I'm the player. The tycoon's eyes sparked with interest, drawing her into his web. Ah, a fighter. We might just have some fun, then. He leaned closer, his expression shifting to one of predatory satisfaction. But to make it fair, you'll need to reveal something personal, a deep secret or regret, something to lay bare. Only then can we see the power of your voice. Her heart sank. He could never understand the weight of her burdens. Still, she knew he had pushed her into an inevitable corner. Fine, she said, a fire igniting in her belly. But you'd better be prepared for your own truth as well. We play till the end. The crowd murmured, unsure of where to place their loyalties. Would this girl unravel the tycoon into submission, or would he bury her under the weight of his fate? The uncertainty spread like the tension in the air. Let us begin, he said, his voice a seductive whisper. You first, what shame do you carry that colors your soul? The question hit her like a punch to the gut. Her thoughts swirled, memories flooding in images of lost friends, of dreams shattered. The rawest wound throbbed in her chest. Could she unearth it? Would it undo her? A moment of silence passed, the kind that feels endless. They watched her, each sigh and gasp building the stakes. The truth was a burden, but what was freedom if not worth the risk? I once had the chance to change everything, she began, her voice trembling, fighting against the swell of vulnerability. I stood at the crossroads of hope, but I chose despair instead. I let myself fade away into oblivion. Gasps speckled the crowd, and she felt a flicker of warmth within the chill of her confession. Light seeped into her darkness, the tycoon's lips thinned, still plotting. And what did that cost you? I lost my family, my future, myself. Each word felt like shrapnel, tearing at old wounds. Tears pricked at her eyes. Thrilling, he mused, eyes glimmering with dark excitement. But it's not enough. Not yet. What really keeps you awake at night? The crowd leaned in, caught between the girl's pain and the tycoon's insatiable hunger. She could feel their eyes resting on her, trembling hope battling against harsh skepticism. The walls felt like they were closing in. She took a deep breath, heart racing. My greatest regret is the moment I stopped believing in myself, she whispered, the honesty unraveling like thread in her hands. His gaze intensified, but he didn't seem satisfied. Now it's my turn, he said, an eerie calm washing over him. And trust me, you'll wish you hadn't challenged me. Fear flooded her senses. What could he possibly reveal that would shake her resolve? Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, the weight of impending chaos loomed. Just before he could speak, a commotion broke out in the crowd. A scream pierced the tension, pulling gasps of shock from the onlookers. Heads turned, and every heartbeat quickened. What had happened? Was it an ally or an enemy? The question loomed. Sharp and disorienting. And in that moment, as the crowd erupted, something dark shifted in the tycoon's gaze. Would she stand firm against the chaos, or would the secrecy of his past turn her world inside out? The lights flickered ominously as the crowd gasped in unison, their attention torn from the tycoon to whatever calamity had snaked its way through the throng. Shadows danced across the faces surrounding her, a kaleidoscope of fear and anticipation. Even the tycoon seemed momentarily distracted, the edge of his smirk wavering. Stay focused, he whispered, his voice low, yet it carried an unsettling edge. The menace in his throat tempered the charm, exposing the dark side lurking beneath. Did you hear that? Without waiting for a reply, she squinted into the throng, searching for the source of the chaos. Her stomach turned. Adrenaline coursed through her veins like fire, emboldening her to stand tall, even as fear rattled her insides. The crowd's agitation tightened the air, like a fist closing around her throat. A figure burst through the crowd, eyes wide and wild. It was a woman, a young waitress, breathless and frantic. They found something. She stammered, glancing around as if the shadows had eyes. Over by the entrance. Every heart froze. The tycoon's expression shifted, interest peaked, the playful gleam in his eyes returning with intensity. What have they found? He asked expectantly. The crowd swirled, curiosity weaving a tapestry of intrigue. Some edged forward, others stepped back, as if trying to escape whatever horror lurked just beyond. The energy shifted again, uncertainty deepening like a rising tide. "Something bad," the waitress replied, her breath shaky. "A body. They're saying he has been killed." A ripple of shock coursed through the crowd. Gasps erupted again, an electric jolt that slammed against her chest. Her mind raced. Whose body? Was anyone nearby involved? The implications spun through her like a whirlwind. What? She breathed, feeling the cold claw of fear return. Who is it? We don't know yet. The waitress said, her voice breaking. But it's not just anyone. They're saying he was important, someone big. The tycoon straightened, his smile replaced by a cold mask of interest. The way he watched the commotion, it was almost like he thrived on it. A calculation flickered behind his eyes. Whatever was unfolding only seemed to heighten his sense of power, like he thrived on chaos. A hush descended as people strained to listen. The atmosphere crackled, thrilling and terrifying. With every heartbeat, dread settled deeper into her gut. Your truth will come at a cost, his voice mocked softly, drawing her attention back to him. You've touched on your deepest regret, now the universe has responded. What are you saying? Her voice faltered as anger flared, defiance rising within her. Death has its own revelations, my dear, he purred, the hint of danger threading through his words. You may find the answers you seek if you survive the night. Then he leaned closer, his face mere inches from hers. But remember, he said, low and deliberate, what you fear might just help you win. Every nerve in her body sang with tension. A chill crept up her spine as dread mingled with the electric charge of panic. The stakes had changed yet again, spiraling beyond control. Blood ran cold in her veins. Would this confrontation lead her into the depths of darkness, or might it unravel the secrets lurking in the shadows? With chaos swirling around her, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay ahead was ferociously dangerous. And yet, she could feel the flicker of hope igniting within her once more. Maybe, just maybe, unearthing the truth could offer her the escape she so desperately sought. Let us find out the truth, then, she replied, channeling every ounce of defiance she had left. But as she plunged deeper into the unfolding storm, a new question nagged relentlessly at the edges of her mind. What if unraveling this mystery led not to her salvation, but to her doom? And in that moment of reckoning, a scream echoed once more. The crowd recoiled, revealing the dark truth that would profoundly change everything. What lay beneath their feet, shrouded in shadow, poised to strike. The collective gasp brought a hush so deep it felt like the world had gone still. She found herself frozen, straining to peer through the bodies, the rising tension morphing into an ominous cloud that choked the air. The brightness of the venue felt dimmer, the festive lights now accusatory, illuminating fear instead of joy. What happened? She managed to croak out, her throat dry and scratchy. The waitress stepped forward, her eyes reflecting a blend of terror and disbelief. It was contagious, sending shivers racing through her. People started shouting. They said it was over by the dumpsters. They thought it was a joke until they saw him. Who? The word tumbled from her lips. She needed to know if this was connected to her own past. The whispers that brushed against her ears, the secrets hidden in every corner. They say it's someone powerful, someone tied to the tycoon, the waitress whispered, trembling now, her voice haunting. A cold realization sliced through her. She glanced back at the tycoon, his face inscrutable, eyes narrowed as if he could somehow manipulate the situation to his advantage. Was he somehow involved? It was impossible to shake that thought. The way he thrived on chaos, the way he relished in power, it felt sinister. Everyone, back up! Shouted a voice from the front of the crowd as paramedics rushed into the scene. Flashing lights splashed the crowd with urgency, breaking the thrall of dread that had gripped the room. They moved with precision, a stark contrast to the panic swirling all around. The hushed chatter built up like the mounting pressure of a volcano, ready to erupt. With every step forward, she felt the heat of the crowd's fear radiating into her. Alongside it, a morbid curiosity sparked within her. What if the answers she sought lay hidden in that lifeless form? Could the truth of the body unravel the layers of deception she had painstakingly built her life around? The crowd parted barely enough for her to squeeze forward. Her heart raced as she pushed her way through murmurs of horror and speculation. The body a man, she realized, as the medics worked quickly, lay behind a barricade. She couldn't see his face yet, but dread knitted her insides tighter, and then, it happened. A gasp from another witness, a woman who stood frozen just like her. "It's him!" she shrieked, and the crowd fell completely silent. A shiver skated down her spine. "Who?" she whispered, desperate for clarity among the chaos. "Daniel. The businessman. He was missing." Her breath caught in her throat as realization sank in. Daniel wasn't just anyone, he was part of the elite world she once aspired to mingle with, and whispers of his dealings were murmured like a cautionary tale in the heart of that circle. The tycoon turned toward her, his intensity returning, palpable. "This is no accident, is it?" The air between them crackled. "What do you mean?" she challenged, but her voice wavered slightly. His lips curled into a knowing smirk, but darkness glimmered in his eyes. "Sometimes the ones who rise the highest must fall first, or they take down those around them." Breathless, she felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her, reality stretching into something unrecognizable. Would her fight for the truth expose more than just shadows? Would it lay bare the very foundations of her past? Before she could compose her thoughts, a sudden outcry erupted behind her. "The killer's still out there." A frigid wave of panic washed over the crowd, a primal fear that ignited chaos again. She felt her pulse quicken, her instincts screaming to flee. But she couldn't run, not now. Not when the mystery beckoned so tantalizingly close. With every fiber of her being, she knew this was just the beginning. The truth was locked away in the ruins of deceit. Was it too cost for her to pay? But deep down, a new thought ignited a flicker of hope. What if confronting this darkness could lead her to a light she had yet to imagine? As she turned to face the tycoon, uncertainty gnawed at her while a defiant bravery glimmered within. Would she uncover the truth, or would it consume her in its fiery depths? All around her, shadows shifted as chaos unfolded again. The night was still young, and every heartbeat echoed the chilling question, who would make it through to see the dawn? The chaos swirled around her, a tempest of panic and fear that threatened to pull her under. She could feel the energy shifting, people recoiling in terror and whispers flaring like flames in the night. Each shout seemed to echo off the walls, reverberating through the air like a steel drum. It was almost deafening. Suddenly, the paramedics froze, their movements sharp but hesitant, as if the weight of the body before them was too heavy for the fragile air. The murmurings quieted, and the room felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. She straightened herself, determination clawing at her insides. She needed answers, even if they could tear her world apart. As fear seeped back into the crowd, she tore her gaze from Daniel's body, knowing she had to confront the tycoon. If he was tied to Daniel, then he held the key she desperately needed. Was he just playing a game in this deadly charade? Each heartbeat thrummed in her ears as she stepped closer to the imposing figure. "Do you think this was a game?" she demanded, the tremor in her voice barely concealed. Her breaths came out ragged, a mixture of adrenaline and anxiety. "You know something, don't you?" With an unsettling calm, the tycoon leaned back against the bar, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the surface. There was an arrogance in his movements, a predatory glint in his eyes that made her stomach twist. "Everything in this world is a game, my dear. Just some pieces knocked off the board early," he said, cocking his head as if assessing her worth. Her heart raced as voices clashed around them. Someone nearby shouted that the police were on their way, but all she could focus on was that cold, chilling gaze. "You think you can intimidate me?" she shot back, adrenaline surging through her. "Not intimidate," he replied smoothly, his voice silk over steel. Educate. You're playing in a world where power rules, and the weak often pay the price. You of all people should know that. His words sliced through her like ice, and a sickening realization loomed over her. Did the tycoon hold secrets to her own past? Had he orchestrated Daniel's demise to frighten her into submission? The connections twisted and turned in her mind, a sinister web lurking in the shadows. Before she could respond, the crowd erupted into chaos again. Look! Someone yelled, pointing toward the entrance. All heads turned as figures in uniforms flooded the room, their authoritative presence attempting to corral the frightened guests. Everyone, stay where you are. An officer barked, scanning the stunned faces. We're handling the situation. No one leaves. The room felt electric. Panic surged anew, a living thing breathing chaos into the turmoil. She looked back at the tycoon, whose expression had shifted just slightly, a flicker of concern or excitement. It was hard to tell. Who was he? She pressed, desperation clawing at her throat. Who did this? The tycoon leaned forward now, eyes narrowed, protective yet predatory. You've opened a door you weren't prepared to walk through, he whispered, each word dripping with foreboding. But I have to know. She felt the weight of all eyes on her. Someone was dead, a life had been snatched away, and she could be close to the truth, a truth she needed desperately. Then brace yourself, he replied, allowing a sliver of a smile to bloom across his lips, a sign of pleasure in her aggravation. You may not like what you uncover nor who you truly are in this twisted tale. Her heart pounded in her chest as his words hung like a cloud of smoke. An unsettling thought crept through her mind like an unwelcome guest, but there was no turning back now. She had set her sights on the truth, and she would sink or swim. Behind her, the commotion continued, the blaring sirens drawing ever closer. She felt the weight of darkness pressing in, yet a flicker of hope loomed. Could this be her chance to wrest control of her life? And as she stared into the tycoon's mercurial eyes, a chilling question twisted in her gut: what truths would surface, and would she confront the monsters lurking in her past before they consumed her whole? The tension was a living thing. It wrapped around her throat, so tight she could barely breathe. Sirens blared outside, their wails piercing through the chaos like a battle cry. She felt herself trembling, a raw mix of fear and resolve surging within her. Would the truth really help her, or would it dismantle everything she believed in? The tycoon's gaze remained locked on her, a cold flame flickering just beneath his surface. He didn't flinch, not even as the paramedics worked feverishly to revive Daniel's lifeless form. You think mere police lights can illuminate the darkness that follows? He said almost mockingly. The truth can be blinding. What are you talking about? She spat, the impatience bubbling to the surface. You're standing here, cool as ice, while someone is dead. How can you do this? His smile faded, but the calculative gleam in his eyes intensified. Are you sure he is dead, or just strategically removed from the board? Maybe he wasn't meant to be part of this game anymore, just as you may find yourself discarded soon. A shudder of horror traveled down her spine. What if he was right? What if this was all bigger than she could even begin to comprehend? The weight of his words lingered in her mind, and her heart raced, hammering against her ribcage. She needed to stay focused, to push through the dread that threatened to overwhelm her. The police will have questions. They want answers, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. You could be implicated in this. You need to tell me who is behind this. Suddenly, the doors burst open again. Officers flooded the room, weapons drawn, demanding everyone to stay calm. The atmosphere shifted, the air electrified with urgency. Panic gripped the crowd anew as they realized that investigations were set to ensue. Step away from him. One officer shouted, pointing at the tycoon. Now. Dare you? The tycoon shot back, his voice a low growl. Do you know who you're dealing with? This is all beneath us. She watched as the officers hesitated, caught between their duty and the looming threat of this powerful man. The tension crackled like electricity, charging the air around them. Not beneath, just above, she whispered, feeling the hill she was climbing steepen beneath her feet. The words hung there, a small voice of warning in the raging storm. It was a wild game they were playing. Enough of this, the tycoon spat, his eyes narrowing in fury. You want the truth? The truth is this: Daniel didn't die by chance. And the consequences of his demise. An officer stepped closer, aiming with authority. Shut up. You don't get to talk. She couldn't let them silence him. Let him speak. I need to know. She shrieked, desperation clawing at her throat. Very well, the tycoon said, his voice lowering to a chilling whisper, carrying a weight that made her stomach turn. I'll tell you what you need to hear. But be warned, you're inviting the devils themselves to dance. In that moment, she realized she had crossed a threshold into a realm far darker than she'd ever imagined. She was no longer just a spectator, she was a player. The stakes were impossibly high. Just as he opened his mouth to divulge more, the lights flickered ominously, casting shadows over their faces. A sudden blackout engulfed the room, plunging everything into darkness. Screams filled the air, confusion erupted with noise, then silence. Amidst it all, the last thing she heard before the world around her collapsed was the tycoon's knowing laugh. What had she unleashed, and would she survive the truth she so desperately sought? The darkness swallowed her whole. Breaths quickened, hearts raced, and the world collapsed into chaos. She staggered, her hands reaching out, trying to find something, anything to anchor herself to this reality that was spiraling wildly. The air felt heavy, thick with a sense of dread that pulsed around her like a heartbeat. Then, muffled cries broke the silence, followed by the sharp crack of panic drawing nearer. The officers, she realized, were scrambling, calling out in confusion. Voices echoed, but each word faded into a murkiness that twisted her stomach. Light returned suddenly, flickering like a candle in a storm. The paramedics' flashlights crisscrossed the room, illuminating frantic faces. Some dashed toward the tycoon while others tended to Daniel, now lifeless, lying cold on the floor. The artificial light was the only semblance of safety in this chaos. Find him. Where's the tycoon? One officer barked, and the urgency sent tremors through her limbs. She felt trapped on the precipice of a storm, the kind that could swallow her whole with just one wrong move. She darted her gaze around, searching for the man who claimed to know the truth. Where was he? Had the darkness contained him, too? Just then, she caught a glimmer of movement. The tycoon stood near the far wall, partially concealed in shadow, but his eyes glinted with a wild intelligence. Come closer if you dare. He hissed, the words slithering through the air. Truth is a weapon, and ignorance, a shield. But those who hold the cards may not be those you expect. Every nerve in her body screamed for her to listen, but the officers were closing in, eyes wide with suspicion, doubt brewing under their brows. We need to secure this area. No one leaves, one said, turning toward her. You might be a witness or part of something more sinister. And just like that, the weight of blame fell on her shoulders. She recalled the tycoon's chilling grin. Hadn't he warned her? Hadn't he hinted that secrets wrapped in darkness were bound to shatter those unprepared for their weight? She wanted to scream, to tell them she was just seeking the truth, but the words caught in her throat. Get them both. An officer commanded, gesturing toward her and the tycoon. We'll sort this out in the precinct. Her heart sank. There were too many pieces on this board now. The tycoon's revelation was hanging by a thin thread, and yet a feeling deep inside her told her that this was far from over. As they began to push the crowd back, the tycoon leaned closer, an ember of determination igniting in his gaze. Listen, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, you think you're trapped, but in this game, everyone plays their part. Remember, truth is a mirror reflecting the ugly face of power. And the game? It's only just begun. She recoiled at his words, the realization crashing over her like a tidal wave. What if he was right? What if she was merely a pawn in a much larger scheme, one designed to fool even the strongest players into losing their grip. Her thoughts spun, vivid and racing, while the threat of impending arrest loomed over them like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. The officers moved closer, and she took a step forward, instinctively knowing she needed to act. "Stop!" A booming voice filled the space. The chief of the officers stood at the entrance, and the crowd parted with uncertainty. "This isn't over," the tycoon hissed, his eyes locked on hers. "Remember, those who hold the keys can open doors you never knew existed." As the chief began issuing orders to restrain them both, she felt her grip on the situation slipping away. What awaited her on the other side of this unimaginable storm? Would she forge her own path through the labyrinth of secrets, or would the truth destroy everything in its wake? The air crackled with uncertainty as they advanced. Would she follow the forces pulling her towards the abyss, or could she summon the courage to confront the truths lurking within? The doors were closing fast. What new horrors would she unearth? Would she dare to take that first step into the unknown? The chaos receded into a tense hush, dim lights flickering angrily as officers ushered terrified guests from the scene. They forced her and the tycoon to the floor, handcuffing him first, the weight of disbelief pressing against her chest. She could scarcely breathe, her heart pounding as officers surrounded them like a storm ready to unleash its fury. "What do you know?" shouted an officer, his voice gruff as he aimed questions at the tycoon, whose expression revealed nothing. "Enough to understand that power may shift, but it never truly disappears," he answered coolly, a dark irony lacing his tone. Tension rose, he absorbed the room's chaos without flinching. But she began to squirm under the weight of impending doom. This wasn't just the end. It felt like the beginning of everything unraveling around her. Struggling to collect her thoughts, she seized the moment the flame ignited within her again, fierce and insistent. "That's not true," she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. Every eye turned her way, disbelief and curiosity flashing in their gazes. "You think this is power? No. This is fear. You hold secrets over us like a chokehold." The officers looked taken aback, shifting their focus from the tycoon to her. Maybe it was the desperation painted on her face that compelled them to listen. "Light can only shine in darkness if we let it," she continued, meeting the tycoon's penetrating gaze. "Do you threaten us because you feel weak? Because you're exposed?" An uncomfortable silence followed, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. The tycoon's expression darkened, but the flicker of something, maybe admiration, flashed just beneath. "Interesting twist," he replied, his voice almost a whisper. "But remember, every mirror reveals a shadow. Whatever you think you see may lead you to horrors far greater than this." Her stomach twisted, fear gnawing at her resolve. "Horrors," she echoed, a shiver rippling through her. "You'd rather scare us than guide us? We stand together in our humanity. Do you think we'll be cowed into silence?" The officers shifted uneasily, a sense of hesitation creeping over their authoritative walls as they sensed the changing tide. "Enough!" barked the chief, stepping forward with authority. "You're both here as potential witnesses, don't make things harder on yourselves." "Witnesses?" she cried, exasperation filling her throat. "What we carry can be the truth, just like Daniel's death. We're not just pawns, and I refuse to be silenced." Suddenly, with a hush of anxiety around her, the crowd pulled back, their attention fixated on the tycoon. "You've pushed us to the edge," he said flatly, the weight of his words unraveling quietly but potently. "Each of you longs for answers, and yet, you're terrified that the closer you get, the worse it will become. Isn't that the real horror? We're terrified because the people we trust hide behind masks." She shot back, fear giving her strength. "You've shown us that power and deception dance hand in hand. But I've always believed that those who stand against darkness shine the brightest." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Glances exchanged, whispers traveled, curiosity began to reignite the faint embers of courage. Time stretched painfully. The eyes that once bore contempt watched her now with genuine intrigue. The mood shifted, tension yielding to hope. You could stand among them, you know, the tycoon murmured, his voice a velvet purr. You could wield your fight for hope and truth. But are you prepared for that? More than anything, she replied, breathing deeply, a steady confidence surging in her chest. If we're to expose power for its villainy, I won't shy from this truth. I will lead, not follow. The officer standing nearest raised his eyebrows. And you think you're safer here? They'll come for you next. We are stronger together, she insisted. If we unite in truth, that is power. Not the kind that confines us in fear. The officers exchanged uncertain glances, moments teetering on a knife's edge. The tycoon's gaze remained fixated on her, as if weighing his next move. A gamble, he murmured with intrigue, his usual airs of confidence returning. A run towards the truth is always perilous, but I might just admire you for it. What's your game? She shot back. Let's just say shifting tides may reveal unexpected allies, he replied, a cold smile beginning to form as shadows shifted in the corners of the room. But remember, the truth seeks something in return. It relinquishes freedom but demands a price. A sudden explosion of noise broke through a loud crash as protesters stormed through the exit, shouting for justice. Their rallying cry became a clarion call of solidarity, shaking the foundations of despair and igniting passion. Once captivated by fear, the audience now transformed. Shouts of support rose from the crowd, echoing a determination to revive their voices. We can take a stand. Someone screamed. We deserve to be heard. Let's take it to the streets then. She shouted, feeling her heart race as her adrenaline fueled a fire she didn't know existed within her. In that moment, chaos transformed into something buoyant and bold. The walls in her mind cracked open, color exploding into every crevice where darkness once thrived. Each condemnation turned to empowerment as fear gathered strength, fueling flames of inspired revolution. The officers hurried to contain the audience, but they were already overwhelmed. Unity surged the moment shifted, leaving behind the specter of fear. And as the tycoon looked on, his smirk returned, his eyes flashing with a manic intrigue. Welcome to the new game, he said quietly, his voice barely a murmur against the uproar. But in this game, everyone plays. With a heart thundering against her chest, she finally understood what the tycoon meant. There was no turning back. As hope lit the path ahead, she took a brave step into the dawning storm, stride steady against the tide, ready to uncover every truth, every shadow hidden, daring the darkness to come, and with that, the game unfurled its true narrative, the one she had decided to write, strong enough to alter her fate and the fate of everyone around her. Now, the stage was set, her voice the clarion of defiance ringing all around. Let's write this destiny. She cried, her voice ascending above the clamor. At this moment of climax, where possibility flickered like the fires of rebellion, she felt invincible. And if this was the end of one chapter, then the command to her audience was clear: stand tall, for the story is just beginning. Now, if you want to hear more about this incredible journey and the changes it brought forth, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share the momentum. Flood the comments section with your wild reactions and theories about what just went down. Your voice matters and is part of this community. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see how strength can emerge from struggle. Your support shapes the stories we tell, and truly makes a difference.